Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, hosted by myself, Craig Gray, the independent Rangers podcast made for fans, by fans. And as always, all of our content is absolutely free. You've got us here over on YouTube at the moment as well, guys. You can get us over on Twitter as well, at Gersnet Online. And the website as well, gersnet.co.uk, where you can get access to the forum and lots of other good articles as well as an history archive. Just before we start, I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, that's Forrest Precision Engineering. They are a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company and have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years. And we're absolutely delighted they're backing our pod. You can get them over at forestprecisioneng.com. And you can also visit the Forest Precision Executive Lounge, a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand. For information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Now it's time to introduce my guest. First up, Mr. Colin Armstrong, loving the strip in the background, mate. Obviously, a wee nod to Jimmy Bell, I suppose. I know it was a sort of retro shirt day today, 2 years as well to the day, actually, that we had that brilliant night against Leipzig. When he just sadly passed away before that. So I'm liking the shirt, mate. How's things?
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, the shirt's an original. I should point out it's not one of these dodgy Chinese remakes or Turkish efforts or whatever you want to call it. That's my original for back. It was 95, 96. It was definitely around about Gascoigne and Loudrop era anyway. So, yeah, I don't know if I get into these days though, but that's an original.
Aye, you never know. It's worth a try. And for Paul Gascoigne and Alan McCoy, the Eddie the Eagle, Stewart, is that, we were just discussing it off there, but I think that was Eddie the Eagle that you've got in the background instead of a retro Rangers shirt. How are you doing anyway, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Actually, that is the cycling. That's actually the Tour de France in the mass finish in Grenoble. So that's what that is.
That's a lot more classy, isn't it? You can't get me a classier than a wee Tour de France in Grenoble as well. But
I mean, it depends how many drugs you want. Just to mention Jimmy.
Well, as long as it's as long as it's not Lance Armstrong, it's all right. I mean, but we could certainly be doing with some more of Mark Waller's dodgy coffee anyway this season for the last 3 games.
Just mentioning Jimmy Bell there. I got to know Jimmy reasonably well, hanging about Ibrox and hanging about entrances to various stadiums after before games, and there was a classic in Choco pre-season training where the coaching staff and the press combined to take on the staff of the hotel in Choco, and all the players after they finished the last session on the Friday would come and watch us taking on the waiters, and some of them were actual players and others were just making up the numbers. It was a good mishmash and usually an enjoyable game. However, there was a guy actually accidentally nutmegged Jimmy, who was wearing these industrial football boots. There's no other way I can describe them. They look like somebody would play for hockey or orienteering or something like that, and Jimmy turned up with these boots, and this guy accidentally nutmegged Jimmy. Of course, from the sideline, Ian Durant and McCoy were giving Jimmy Bell it tight, shouting, "That guy's just taking the piss out of you, Jimmy." Of course, Jimmy listened to them rather than the fact that the guy had accidentally, did a wee turn on him, and nearly half the guy in two, which almost started a mass brawl with Archie Knox and Walter and David Dodds and all the rest of it getting in as the referees to break up this fight, all because wee Durant had wound Jimmy up to like a coiled spring, and he just unleashed this tackle on this guy. Honest to God, I can still hear this thwack, this boot landing in the boy's kneecap, this Italian guy rolling about the turf screaming. Anyway, I digress long enough.
Oh, brilliant. He was some man, Jimmy Bell, wasn't he? Some guy. Bonnie matters today. Colin, I'll start with you. Over win against Kilmarnock. It was a really weird game. I mean, a really weird first 20 minutes. It's one of the games where I think if you look at the stats and whatnot, it looks as if, we dominated, and I suppose they probably did for the most part. But I think it's just weird how you kind of feel maybe coming out of some games. Like, I think if that game was in like November or December, or maybe in that run we went on like January to March, I think we're all probably coming out there going, but like buzzing, we've managed to come back for a goal down, we've missed a penalty, we've still got the character and the hunger to come back from it, and we've scored a few goals. But you hear me?
I can hear you.
That's unfortunate.
Colin's on mute, actually.
Aye, but can you not hear me at all, Colin? Right, we'll see what happens.
No, okay.
Stuart, we'll go with you then.
You went with Colin first. You went with Colin first. Go and stick it. Right, aye. It was a weird day in so many ways. I thought the fact that Rangers, as you say, came back from a goal down. I mean, they had 30 odd shots on at goal, scored 4 goals under normal circumstances. You would say, yeah, great. But I just thought there were so many deficiencies in the team, and deficiencies that we've seen over a number of weeks and even a couple of months, that they, starting from scratch, they lose a goal almost instantly. A goal that it would be a schoolboy blunder, if you like. I saw some people try to blame Butland for it. But if you're a goalkeeper, you don't start going chasing balls that are going beyond your far post. You're looking for whoever's covering that area to actually be marking up or marking their man. No suddenly turn round and find yourself confronted with a guy who's actually in open space. I thought it was an absolute debacle of a goal. And one that sums Rangers up so much. To come back from that, great. But there was, it was like thud blunder rather than blood and thunder for the rest of the half. They lacked direction. They were going in the right direction toward the Kilmarnock goal, but they just lacked so much composure and almost seemed to be making up tactics on the hoof. To go in one each at half time, I think, was a bonus, and ultimately they kicked on from that after Kilmarnock had lost a player for the best part of half of the first half. But I still think that you have left Ibrox today with that kind of sinking feeling of inevitability that at some point they are not going to come back from a goal down, or somebody's going to put one on them.
Yeah. Colin, I think that's you back now. We all good?
Yeah, we're back. I could hear you, but I'd lost the screen, so I couldn't unmute. I've got so many packages open, I couldn't find you again. I was like, where are they? So you were talking to me, and I was like, I can't find them. Unmuted, so apologies.
No, it's fine. I was just saying to be sure there, what was your sort of overall thoughts again? I was saying it was a weird one, mostly just because, as I say, if that's a game November, December time, you're probably looking at a lot more positive than what you are coming out today. I mean, I think I'm trying to be positive as I can be, but I think Stewart made a good rephrase when he's talking about this sense of inevitability that we think might eventually come in the next few weeks, but we're still hanging in there, I suppose.
Yeah, I just think Rangers have a real issue when it comes to starting games. And for the first sort of 5 minutes of the day, we started actually okay. We've had the claim for the penalty, which I didn't think was a penalty. I think the referee got that one right. We've had a couple of wee chances here and there. And you're right, early in the season, 4-1 against Kilmarnock, and we're ranting and raving, but we've dug ourselves into a hole that it doesn't feel like it's going to be enough. But we're there because it's our fault. We are where we are. But just how Rangers start games. I mean, before we got the equaliser, just before half time, I was sitting there sort of shaking my head like, we're going in here 1-0 down to a team who haven't had a shot on target. They literally hadn't had a shot on target, and we were going in 1-0 down to them. And I think that's indicative of where Rangers are at the moment. I think the key to what Clement was so successful at when he first came in. I know Dessers and others get a lot of stick at the other end of the pitch, but I think we'd found a way to to score goals with Dessers in the team, whether he's scoring or someone else is scoring. You know, we were winning games. I think the key to what Clement brought to the team initially was we were organised, we controlled games, and we didn't concede. And now we're not only are we conceding, we're conceding stupid goals, really bad, cheap, stupid goals. And you know, the Celtic game's a classic example. But 10 seconds into the game and Tav sells the pies. I would say the third one as well. You know, Butland didn't cover himself in glory. You know, the amount of really bad, cheap goals we're conceding at the moment. It looks like it's going to, you know, cost us ultimately, unless we can pull it out the hat next week and hope that Celtic drop points elsewhere. But yeah, that's why we are where we are. You know, I believe that we'd found a way of playing despite the sort of issues at the other end of the pitch with the strikers and all the rest of it. We'd found a way of not conceding, controlling games, creating enough chances so that we would get goals, and that seems to have gone. And that was. I think pretty much everyone just laughed when that goal went in because it was just so farcical, and it's just kind of typical of the sort of goals we're conceding at the moment.
It was such a Rangers goal to concede, and we seem to be repeating ourselves a lot on these shows where it's just like we never seem to concede a goal that's a worldie. It's always like a defensive calamity or something bad, another nonsense has happened. Stuart, we were on last week, and I remember saying, like, it was a really weird feeling when someone asked me what I thought the team was going to be heading into. I think it was the St Mirren game. I just went, I'm at the point now where you could name any starting 11 and I'll just go, right, okay, let's get on with it, because there's no one apart from, you know, obviously Butland, you know, Sterling, maybe Diamande. Apart from that, the rest, you're kind of like their positions are up for grabs because, you know, whoever we play in that position, what will be. But he's picked the same team 2 weeks in a row. What was your thoughts on the starting 11? I'm kind of at the point now where I think it's kind of at the stage where the manager's picking what he's got. I mean, we've got this massive squad, but we mentioned it last week that, you know, we've got that many players in the stands, no contributing, and, you know, it's hurting us, especially up front. I just think that, I know it's quite ironic considering we scored 4 goals, but if you look at that front four, Sterling, Cantwell, Silva, Dessers, there's hardly any pace there, you know. And you're relying on Tavernier, a 32-year-old right back, to basically be the pace in the team. So it's, you know, it was the same team for 2 weeks in a row. Do you think that was mostly just because it's only what the manager can pick at the moment?
There's a bit of that. I think he's also fearful of bringing in somebody who might actually not cut it. And saying that, I think there's a number of guys in that team who they're almost like playing with fear. They almost look frightened, as if the expectation is just too much for them. And that is not what you need from Rangers players at any time. Certainly not what you need a couple of games from the finishing line. I think there's too many are almost out there trying not to make a mistake, and inevitably it will make a mistake. I think Tavernier typified that today. He lost his man. In that position, you must know that you've got a guy behind you or outside you, and therefore you cover them. You don't just jog back and let somebody, you know, outstrip you. And I know that people will say again, oh, maybe Butland should have come for that. The goalkeeper's coming a hell of a way to go for that ball. Something he's not really done, and you don't expect a goalkeeper to do that. But I just think there's too many of them almost look as if they don't want the ball, rather than being desperate to take the ball and try and do something with it. So I think in some respects, Clement's hands are tied by the players he's got available to him. But equally, I think there's one or two players that are letting him down badly.
I mean, one thing that I noticed a lot today was the amount of space that there was in the middle of the park. And it's almost as if any time Lundstrom or Cantwell picked up the ball, you know, they turn round and they've like got a load of space, but no one's making runs to help them. And a lot of people point to the lack of width that we've got in the team right now, and that is a fair point. But equally as well, the amount of space that was in that middle of the park, that the likes of Cantwell should be occupying. I just felt, it was far too much. Colin, in terms of Mr. David Dickinson, Stuart mentioned frightened earlier. I think that might have summed up him as well at some point today. I mean, like the Rangers players, let's just say he grew into the game. But I think his first 20 minutes or so it was baffling. I mean, we mentioned that the first sort of penalty decision. I'm with you. I don't think it's a penalty. I mean, even in terms of the letter of the law, is it a penalty? I mean, I don't know, because people keep saying, this handball rule's stupid, this, that, and the next thing, without probably knowing what the actual rule is. They're probably just saying that is some sort of soundbite, because the rules seem to change all the time. So I don't, to be quite honest, I don't even know if, in terms of the laws of the game, it is a handball. It might be because he's been pointed by a couple of officials in another room with the benefit of replays that he should go and see it again. But, he stood by his original decision. He's not given it. I think fair enough, because, for me, I think it's really harsh on the Kilmarnock player. Obviously, you get the second one, clear penalty, in my opinion. He stopped a goal-scoring opportunity. It's a clear red card as well. I don't know how anyone can have any complaints about that. Listening back to some of the commentary in Sky, Kenny Miller says, and I quote, "It's a penalty, but I don't think it's a red card." It's like, you can't have one or the other. It's like, it's either a penalty and a red card, or it's not a penalty or a red card, Kenny. But there was one in particular.
Maybe Kenny wanted the red card and not a penalty. I mean, I did have a chuckle to myself. You're right in what you're saying there.
I know, it was just like, I don't know if you're saying this to either just be like annoying or be controversial, or if you actually think that. But either way, it's no very good. But aye, that's for another day, the Sky coverage. But the one, Colin, that really got to me was like that sort of drop ball. I think at the time, and he's put the ball down, Cantwell's on it, he's through and goal, and he just brings it back, and it's like, you played the ball, it's in play, Cantwell's got every right to go for that. And I just felt the first 20 minutes anyway, he completely lost the plot, Dickinson, to the...
I mean, that whole drop ball thing was a bit of a farce, but I find that rule a bit confusing now as well. I'm not convinced everyone knows what the rule is, and looking at what was getting said at the time, it seemed to me he was trying to say to the players, it's Kelly's ball, you need to stand off, and it didn't seem to me like he was trying to play a drop ball. But he wasn't communicating that effectively enough, because Rangers obviously thought it was a drop ball and they were competing for it. It was a really, I think we've seen everything that, we got another example today of the issue with VAR. It was so slow. 8 minutes of injury time in the first half. It's just ridiculous. It's most people who, if they've been watching the show consistently over the last few years, will know my views on VAR. On the big decisions in the first half, I think they did get them right. I don't think the first one is a penalty. I think it's one of those ones, I think it's kind of came off Sterling's thigh, and the guy's arm, he can't get it out of the way. It's one of those ones. So I think that would have been harsh if it was a penalty kick. I don't agree with Kenny Miller, but I know where he's coming from with this one. I think he was questioning the rule. You know what I mean? That denying a goal scoring opportunity should automatically mean a red card, because it is a Stonewall penalty, because he's not just denied a goal scoring opportunity, he's denied a goal. The ball is going into the net, and as he falls down, his arm hits it and stops it getting in. I don't think it's deliberate. I don't think his arm can be anywhere else. I think it's kind of similar to the first one, that there's not a huge amount of distance between the two players. And I can understand why Kilmarnock would feel that was a bit harsh. It is the rule. That's the rule. He's denied a goal-scoring opportunity. It's a red card. I don't think that's the debate that Kenny Miller was wanting to have. I think he was questioning the rule and saying, well, is that really fair? To me, it's a bit like the double jeopardy one with, a goal-scoring opportunity. If a goalkeeper makes a genuine attempt to get the ball, then it's just a penalty and not a red card. Maybe there's room for something like that when it comes to these kind of things, because he stopped a goal. It's a red card. It's a penalty. There's no doubt about that. On that particular incident today, I could understand why people would say well, that seems harsh for a red card, because he's not like standing on the line and stuck out his hand to stop the ball going in. You know, there's nothing he can do about where his arm going. But it didn't matter anyway. I've missed it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of irrelevant, really. But yeah, there was a period in the game where it just felt the game wasn't getting going. The referee was starting the game all the time. VAR was getting involved constantly. And yeah, and it was at that point when we were 1-0 down, which obviously builds to the level of frustration in the crowd and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say that they probably got all the big decisions right today, but the process is it's just too long. You know what I mean? It just goes on for far too long. Supporters on the ground don't have a fucking clue what's going on. You know, you don't get to see anything on the screens. You're just standing there clueless as to what's going on. So yeah, I thought it was another example today as to why VAR isn't quite working up here.
No, I've always found it interesting, like the whole thing about supporters not knowing what's happening on the ground, because as a fan, like, I would like to know. I'd like to hear what the referees are saying. I'd like to see, you know, replays and stuff like that on the telly to see what they're looking at as well. But at the same time, this is Scottish football. It's Rangers and Celtic. So, like, I'd like to think of myself as a rather mild-mannered, normal person that can look at things rather objectively. But we all know there's that many mentalists, let's face it, on both sides of the divide in a stadium that just probably wouldn't put up with that. So, I don't know. We'll need to see where that one takes us. I think they're going to be doing a lot in England, but I just I could give you a list as long as my arm about my complaints about VAR, but one of my biggest complaints with it is the match going supporter are the ones that are the most out the loop. You know what I mean? So you're the one that's paid the most to be there, and you're the one that's least considered in this whole process. The people that are sitting at home watching it, some of them will be neutrals with no real big investment in the game. They're just sitting there watching it as a game. They have more knowledge of what's going on than you do in the stadium. Someone who's invested, someone who's spent a lot of money to be there. You're out the loop completely, and that's one of many complaints I have about VAR. Aye. The thing about the match-going fan in Scotland as well is we're probably one of the last leagues in Europe where the actual match-going fan is the fan that invests the most amount of money into that club that season. You know, season ticket revenue and match day revenue still accounts for most of these clubs, our clubs' revenues, because the TV deal's that crap. You know, down south in England, you know, they are accustomed to a sort of TV customer, but as sad as it is to see, you know, it is the TV companies where a lot of these sort of smaller clubs in England get most of their money from anyway. So why would they care about the normal match-going fans? But up here in Scotland, you know, we seem to be one of the last leagues in Europe where fans, you know, have that big an impact. And, you know, with a big impact, you've also got an element of power there as well, where you can decide to put your money. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in line with that one moving forward. Stuart, Fabio Silva obviously equalised. Thought it was a good finish, to be fair to him. Good to see him get a goal for once. He's been given a bit of stick for his celebration. Must have been getting a wee bit of gidding up for Josh Windass in the last few days about what to do if he scores again. To be honest, I don't know if he was doing it towards the Rangers fans or towards the media or towards whoever. You know, generally I just thought it was a wee bit embarrassing, even if you are doing it to like the opposition or, you know, these people that are against you. If it was to the Rangers fans, then wow, you shouldn't be doing that, especially in, you know, the position that he's been in lately. Well, he's not been turning out the best of performances, but what's your opinion on that? Do you think people are right to be aggrieved, or is it just something else that we're all trying to moan about now?
I think he's either extremely brave or extremely stupid. In fact, I think he's probably both. I mean, he took the goal pretty well, but to then demonstrate your, you know, displeasure at the crowd and the fans is quite another thing. It's not as if he's been, you know, I could see it if the criticism had been there and he'd scored 15 goals, but he hasn't. If that's what 40 million quid buys you, you know, currently, I think they get their money far too easy in England. I mean, ultimately Rangers have brought a guy in for, you know, a period of time on loan. currently he is a Wolves reject. Otherwise, he wouldn't be at Rangers. So, I don't see anything, and I haven't seen anything within his game that would make you think, he's been unfortunate or unlucky. There has been nothing there, and he's been a costly experiment. I'm not sure what the wage split. I imagine Wolves might be quite happy if they get 2 goldfish in a balloon to add to his wages over the course of a week. But he's done nothing to endear himself to the Rangers fans, and I think today was just a kind of final farewell as to how he was feeling and who he puts the blame at. If it was towards the media, he knows where the press box is and the television cameras. So it wasn't towards the media, it was definitely towards the fans. And any stick he then gets thereafter, he's entitled to it.
Mm-hmm. No, I just it's not the type of thing you want to see. And as you say, Stuart, it's not as if he's hit the ground or anything like that. And I do think there is a player there, but he's just one of these guys. I think his overall behaviour just really bugs you and gets at you, especially at a time when, the last couple of months it hasn't been great, and, you see him, let's be honest, diving about a lot of the time. He's doing that sort of stuff today, and I think a position of where we're at the moment, I mean, you've got guys like Silva, you've got guys like Barisic, maybe even Lundstrom, who are clearly not going to be here come the end of the season. And, it's kind of like, how much are you actually going to get out of these guys? I mean, does Fabio, we all talk about the players that have been here for the longest time, not having the mentality to go and win leagues. Well, if they've not got the mentality to go and win leagues, why would Fabio Silva, a guy who's been in the door for a couple of months, who's got no affiliation with Rangers at all, he's just up here on a few months loan, he's going to go back to Wolves anyway. What sort of motivation has he got to try and push himself over the line to do whatever it takes? And I know he scored today, which is fair enough, but you just wonder in the long term how that's going to pan out. Colin, what was
I thought it was only Celtic that brought guys in January that supposedly had a reputation as being players and did nothing. Thinking back to Robbie Keane and Bellamy and the likes coming in and doing absolutely hee-haw. I've said it often enough. I wish I could find a guy who did the DVD cut and the highlights package for Silva, because I wouldn't have him editing football anymore. I'd have him working in Hollywood blockbusters, because there's definitely an Oscar winner out there or a BAFTA award winner out there.
Aye. I mean, the rumours that I've heard is that Wolves are wanting 15 million quid in the summer for him. And the sad thing is, they will probably get it just because of how effed up the market is down in England, where you will get somebody cutting off a few clips of him, and they probably will be able to get a move off the back of that. But such is modern football that we all love. Colin, what was your thoughts on Silva? Had just his performance and that incident, maybe his overall spell at Rangers so far, mate?
Yeah, in terms of his overall spell, there has been times when I've been quite impressed with him. There's been a couple of games when I thought, on the odd occasion he's played as a number 9, I just thought the game passed him by. He didn't look like a goal threat at all. I think he's always been sort of better when he's played out wide. I can remember I was at Easter Road earlier on this season. It's the first away game I've been at a couple of years. It was a Scottish Cup game, and he got the second that day. We got the penalty in the first half. He got the second, and I thought he played quite well that day. He got his goal. He'd had a couple of chances before that. Got his goal. Me and a couple of mates were talking in the pub after it, and we were kind of the opinion going, definitely a player there. It just depends on the fee, but it's ironic that he's done nothing since that game. You know what I mean? And you would have to say that over his whole period of time that he's been here, he's not shown enough. He's certainly not shown enough to make you think there's a £35 million or a £40 million player there. And I certainly, given our restrictions financially, I mean, I wouldn't be overly keen on Rangers spending 15 million on anybody, but certainly not him. I would not be chucking that kind of money. So as for his reaction today, I just kind of think it's indicative of where we are. We've got ourselves into a good position. We've made an arse of it. You know what I mean? We've dropped points against stupid teams. I mean, everyone goes on about Ross County and Dundee. I look at Ross County and Motherwell because those two teams are in the bottom six. I think they're like 9th and 10th or something like that, right? And those are the games that, if the season pans out how it looks like it's going to pan out at the moment, I will look at those two games of the games that killed us. Because that day against Motherwell, with the chance to go 5 points clear, we kind of got away with it because Celtic lost the following day at Tynecastle. You know, the Ross County game's just a shambles. So that's a game that's going to cost us. And I think because we are where we are now, I just kind of get the feeling that it's not an overly harmonious dressing room at the moment.
I'd say that.
And I also get the impression that Big Phil's comments today about Rodgers, I think Rodgers led the debate yesterday and Clement's took it. And I think he'd have been wiser just to keep his counsel, try and do his talking on the park with his team next week. And I think it's just indicative of the frustration and just where we are as a club at the moment, you know what I mean? Because we had them on the ropes. We had them beat, really. You know what I mean? And 2 or 3 stupid games have turned it around. And I think, I just wonder if Clement is actually now, it's dawned on him and he's starting to realise just how little he can count on some of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And he's maybe voiced his frustration and it's maybe not been received well by some in that dressing room. I don't know, but I just get the feeling, I've had the feeling for the last few weeks now that it's not an overly happy camp, and I think it's because we've made an arse of it. There's no other way to put it. And I think those 2 incidents today, I think Silva reacting the way he did to scoring a goal by, you know, giving it all that. I don't know if, as I said earlier on, I don't know if it was aimed at the sport or aimed at the likes of Chris Boyd, who's obviously been quite critical of him. And then for Clement to come out with his post-match comments, it just doesn't bode well. It just doesn't make me feel confident that this group is in the right place to go on and finish the job.
I would concur with what Colin's saying there about the feeling within that team, because you look at that team, the majority of those guys were the ones that did for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst as well. And I think that there might be as what Colin said, a realisation from Clement that there's not the same numbers in that team or in that squad that are playing for him or playing for the jersey that they really should. You're looking for 100%. I know that's never always going to happen, but you're looking for the vast majority of guys to be playing for them. And the thing I would say about Silva, you've seen guys on loan at Rangers are coming in or under a bit of pressure. Okay, it might be because that team that you don't have the characters. You really don't have the guys with the kind of steel and fortitude, if you like, to grab somebody and have a talking to them on the field. You'll never see Tab doing that. You'll never see it. Whereas before, you would see guys, you know, like Richard Gough, Butcher, John Brown, actually having a speak, talking to people. Silva looks a guy who's on his own. There is nobody going in over to him and at any point in time saying, "That well done, just try a bit harder or do this or do that or do the next thing." He looks totally bereft of friends or friendships in that pitch. And that shouldn't be happening with somebody who's one of the first names down in your team sheet, obviously.
Aye. I mean, the thing is with Silva as well, with the injuries to Mito and Dunsima, we're probably going to need to put up with him for the next couple of weeks, but it's just like, where do we go with him? Is it got the mentality to go through the next couple of games? I very much doubt it, like most of you guys, but I will just need to see what happens. I mean, Colin, I think you made a really interesting point about the direction room, and I seen somebody comment earlier. I say somebody, it was a Celtic fan on Twitter doing their usual, but it was after the sort of incidents with Connor Goldson saying, "Oh, Clement's lost the dressing room." There's a part of me going, I kind of hope that he maybe has lost the dressing room in a weird way, because I think something like we need to have a sort of sliding doors moment with this team where we go, enough is enough. We need to get rid of certain players, and that's it. We need a manager to come in and actually do it. I really hope Clement's the one to do it, because we've seen a couple of guys in, like certainly Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. He didn't seem to have the sort of mental fortitude to be able to do that to some of the players. Michael Beale was just a disaster, obviously. And So I really hope Clermont's, got it within him to say, look, this isn't happening anymore. We're going to do it my way. And I think his way's the right way. The guy's incredibly experienced. He's won titles in Belgium, much better quality league than here. He's done relatively well in Europe with Bruges, and he done okay in Europe with Monaco as well. So, the guy knows what he's talking about, and I think it's time that, we back a manager. And when I say back a manager, I mean back him properly. People have said, and, I mentioned it in the chat earlier this week about sort of Gio and stuff like that. People say he get £15 million to spend. They weren't his players that he signed a couple of summers ago. It was Ross Wilson's players, and then we gave the keys to the castle to Michael Beale in the summer in last January, and look where that's got us now. So I think we've got the right manager in at the moment, and I think we need to back him properly in the summer and allow him to get his own players in. But we'll see what happens. Colin, one of the players mentioned earlier, he's not going to be involved for the rest of the season. Connor Goldson, Balogun kept his place today, and of course he came off injured at half time. What's your sort of thoughts on Connor Goldson in terms of that situation, and do you think he is going to be a big miss for the rest of the season? And obviously on Balogun as well, if he's no fit, can you see Ben Davies coming in and doing a job as well?
Well, I mean, if Balogun isn't fit, there's no whether. If Ben Davies is coming in, he's coming in, and that's it. In terms of Goldson, I mean, him being injured, it limits our options, and that's something that's felt evident looking at the team sheet recently. There was a period around about February, March when we were getting a few players back from injury. You were starting to look at the team when it came out, and you were looking at the options on the bench and thinking, right, okay, things are starting to click again. We're playing really well. We're winning games. Players are coming back from injury. We've got options from the bench. I was looking at the bench today and thinking, it's starting to look a bit sparse again. And, and Goldson's just the latest one to sort of join that list. So it limits our options at a time when we need options. We're going into 4 cup finals from now until the end of the season. It's not ideal, and I genuinely think it's something that needs to be looked at. The amount of injuries that we pick up is just atrocious. I've never known a club like us for just picking up constant level injuries. I mean, 2 sitting in one was on the dugout today, and one sitting in the stand. Roof and Jack. I mean, how much football have they played over the last couple of years? I mean, who in their right mind thought it was a good idea to give Ryan Jack a year last season? I'm assuming Michael Beale, but given the level of injuries he'd had prior to last summer, why would you offer him another contract? I mean, he fell out, he got injured towards the end of last season, and I can remember, I remember Frankie tweeting about it at the same time. Loads of people on Twitter saying, this is surely the final straw for Ryan Jack. His contract's up at the end of the season. Another injury that means he's pretty much out for the rest of the season, and then he gets a year. It's just like, why would anyone at the club think Ryan Jack was going to give us more minutes on the pitch? Is beyond me. We've seen enough over the last 3 or 4 years to know he is what he is. You're going to get a limited amount of game time out of him, given the situation. Our finances, and we've got to get value for money with every player. Why anyone thought it was a good idea to give him another contract is beyond me. Roof is another one. I don't think it's a coincidence that we won the title the season we got the most football out of Roof, because there's no doubt about it. He's a great player. He's a good goal scorer. I think he's probably the best striker we've had at the club over the last 5 or 6 years. He's just never fit. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, how much is that in wages sitting on the treatment table week after week after week? You know what I mean? And it's been constantly like that for a while now. Just far too many players going out with injuries. Ridvan, another one, coming back today. He's been here 2 years, constantly injured. And it's something we need to address.
When you go to sign a player and you do this sort of due diligence on them. When Rangers were linked with Roof, I knew a guy who was a Leeds fan, and I also was in contact with somebody in Belgium, and the two of them said the same. He is a hugely talented player, and even saying he would score goals that others could only dream about. However, keep him on the pitch for any length of time, either in consecutive matches or even during a game, was always going to be an issue. And my friend in Belgium said, if you get any more than 25% of matches out of him, you'll have done well. And I haven't checked the stats, but he cannot have played any more than 25, been available for 25% of the matches that Rangers have played. Now, given the fact how many tournaments that Rangers have played in, and given that they've been playing in European competition as well, that's a hell of a lot of games to have missed. I don't doubt the guy's got talent. You know that with some of the goals that he scores. You also know that with the effect he's got in opposition teams by either the guys that they put on as markers or the fact that defensively they seem to tighten up when he comes on the pitch. But the fact of the matter is they just have not had enough out of him over a period of time, and that, when money is scarce, is something that really needs to be looked at for the next bunch of players that Rangers are going to sort of cast their eye over.
I mean, Ryan Jack's an interesting one, because I was probably, when he was given that new contract, on the side of, do you know what? He's a good guy to have around the dressing room. He is a good player on his day. If he's on a relatively small wage, we may as well, because he fits international quota and stuff like that as well. But my God, my feelings and confidence and optimism in this team not even so much the last year, like the last 3 weeks, it's just been shot to smithereens. Like, even I can't put up with some of the stuff. I'm just like that. We just need to get there sometimes.
I mean, if your argument was, let's keep someone around the dressing room because they're experienced, they help.
Scott Arfield
could have kept Scott Arfield robust, and gives you goals. You know what I mean? Ryan Jack has been injured for the majority of his Rangers career. If you were looking to keep a player because of the experience, now I hear loads of fans dismissing that and all the rest of it. And the one I always remember was Graham Souness talking about Ray Wilkins. And he made a comment. I was just a teenager at the time, and I never understood what he was saying at the time. He said I was getting more from Ray Wilkins off the pitch than I was on the pitch. Right, and I never understood that at the time. But obviously, as you get older, you're like, well, obviously, it's how he is as a character in the dressing room. He's obviously leadership qualities. He sets standards at training and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of stuff is important. And I'm sure Ryan Jack offers that. But so would have Scott Arfield. You know what I mean? You could have had Scott Arfield there for another year, and you're going to get minutes out of him because he's robust. He doesn't get injured, and also he offers a goal threat. Whereas Ryan Jack, as much as he is a good player, and I'm not doubting that for a second, but his fitness record over the last 3-4 years has been horrific, and why anyone at that club thought it was wise to give him another year is beyond comprehension, in my opinion. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. But that's something that needs to be addressed. And I think the fact that Clement's only been here a few months and he's already commented on it more than once, baffled by the level of injuries at this club. It's something that needs addressed. And signing players who don't have horrific injury records is probably a good place to start.
Just what you're saying, I completely agree with what you were saying about Souness and Ray Wilkins, but And I get your drift, but comparing Ray Wilkins to one or two players in that current Rangers side is like comparing a Rolls Royce to a tractor. And I don't think that some of the players in that dressing room would add anything in the dressing room. I just don't see it. I think there are guys in there who have been for a considerable length of time keeping their heads down and looking after number one rather than worrying about what's best for the team.
Yeah, I think that certainly sums it up. But just before we speak about our next item on the agenda, which is next week's game, just need to give another shout out to another one of our sponsors, Football Prizes. they're a company who specialise in football competitions and match draws. You can get information on the latest prize over at our Twitter at Gersnet Online, which is an Oscar Cortez signed and framed Rangers shirt. Tickets cost £3.95. There's 165 of them, and the competition ends this Thursday, the 9th of May at 7:30. So if you want to get details on how to win that signed strip, get us over on Twitter at Gersnet Online, or you can visit their website as well at footballprizes.co.uk, or their Twitter at football_prizes. And we'll see what happens with Cortez as well next season. Rumours that he might be able to stay in a loan capacity, which I think might be a decent bit of business. But obviously he's had his injury issues, so we need to hope we can get him over that as well. The wonderful world of being a Rangers fan. Stuart, big business next Saturday. Obviously, Old Firm game, 3 games before the end of the season. We don't need to speak about how big a game it is. It is obviously a must-win. I don't think any of us are very confident going into this one. Not so much because we think that Celtic are going to give us a doing and that they're amazing, because to be quite honest, I don't think they are, and that's probably what makes the position that we're in a lot worse, because you're saying, well, if they're that bad, then what does that make us? But we need to win next week just to have a fighting chance. Do you think the players can do
it? 2 things. First of all, predicting Old Firm games is not an exact science, and we've all seen games that Rangers have gone into, and vice versa, that you don't think that the team, there are teams that have gone in without a hope and hell's chance of getting anything out of it, and suddenly they've picked up an unexpected win, maybe an away win, picking up 3 points, and surprising everyone. The second point I would make is that there is absolutely nothing over a period of a few weeks with this Rangers side that would make you think that they could actually turn everything around and beat Celtic. I go back, Colin, again, the point that Colin made about the games that they dropped the points to. 5 points out of possible 15, 2 points out of 9, 2 draws, in a space of 3 matches. That just wasn't good enough. And you really wonder how much drive and passion some of these players have to take it to Celtic next week. There is, even today when Rangers were winning 4-1, and it was a comfortable win in the end, there were still players out there that you just looked as if they were treading water and trying to get through 90 minutes rather than contributing for 90 minutes. And that for me is worrying. This Celtic side, I don't think are any great shakes myself, given the fact that a couple of years back I fell out so many Celtic supporters by saying that Brendan Rodgers' side, it was going on a massive unbeaten run and were invincibles and all the rest of it, was probably only the 7th best Celtic side that I'd ever seen. Well, this one doesn't break into the top 10 in any way, shape or form. However, that is compared to the current Rangers side, which is probably one of the poorest I've seen in a great many years. So in terms of confidence levels, in terms of expectation, in terms of, even having half a bit of belief in what they might do, I just don't have it. Again, though, things, there could be a shake-up this week in the Rangers squad, in that team, who have decided that the criticism, enough is enough, that they actually have won a match in the last couple, they've beaten the likes of the Kilmarnock today. They're into a Scottish Cup final. They've got another couple of cup finals to play between now and the end of the season. That make it something memorable and really take the game to Celtic. But again, I just don't see where that kind of drive or vision or focus is going to come from, because there's some players just look as if they're already got one eye on their passport and a towel and the flip flops for being on the beach in a couple of weeks.
Aye, it does seem like that, doesn't it, Colin? Alec was sweetening his post-match review earlier about one of my favourite Old Firm games, the 2-0 win at Parkhead in February 2005. And I really loved it because that was the first time I can remember us winning at Parkhead ever. And I think that was the first time we beat Celtic at Parkhead in 4 or 5 years or something like that. And Celtic absolutely battled us that day. I remember like the story was all about like Craig Bellamy, you know, coming in, big name player and stuff like that. And they, to be honest, they battled us that day. Ronald Vaterus pulled off some incredible amount of saves. We go on the counter-attack. Gregory Vignal hits a shot. Rob Douglas spills it into the net. Wee while later, we Novo scores a chip. So, you know, obviously we go on and win a double that season. And I think we'd been in decent form at points that season, but I think that game was probably the one that gave us the belief to say, right, we've beaten Celtic twice in the league now. We've went to Parkhead and won. We can do this. And I don't want to say there's similarities, but you kind of see where I'm coming from in the sense that if we can go and get that win next week, you know, against all the odds, that could push us on for the next 2 games. Because I said on Twitter earlier, and this is me being uber positive, by the way, right? So don't cut this up and say it, guys, and whatnot. But any win next week, okay, and people are talking about goal difference, any win next week, 3 goals behind on equal points, worst case scenario, okay? We go on and play Dundee and Hearts. They're 2 teams that we have beaten 5-0 this season already, and they're 2 teams that I'm not going to have anything to play for. So as much as I don't think it's going to happen, and it's unlikely, a win next week, even if it goes down to 3 goals, you know, it's a shootout the last 2 games, and you never know what's going to happen, but we just need to get over that line next week and deal with that first.
Yeah, I mean, can Rangers win next week? Aye, it's a game of football. We could go to Celtic Park and win in a similar way that we did in the game you were talking about in 2005, although we did lose the next one at Ibrox. And you know,
was that when they won the league at Ibrox?
Aye. So it took Celtic to lose a couple of games towards the end for us to win the title that season. But yeah, it's absolutely possible for us to get a result next week. You know, it's a game of football. It's 2 sort of, you know, close sides in terms of ability and all that kind of stuff. It's the character and mentality side that I worry about. You know, that's the issue that I've got a concern with going to Celtic Park, no away fans, you know, relying on some of the people that have shown against Ross County and Dundee that they couldn't handle the pressure of a title race. I think we've handed the initiative to a side who have been over the course time and time again in recent years. You know, they're now, they've got the bit between their teeth. So I am not confident at all for next week, I have to say. I don't think the chances of us getting the result there are good. I mean, even if we get a draw, that's probably not enough. A win, I wouldn't even go into the goal difference. A win totally changes the dynamic. I think then the spotlight goes on them a little bit in terms of, oh, can you handle it now? You know what I mean? Because we literally are breathing down your necks. And they've still got to play Kelly, which could be a tricky game. But I've just been over the course with so many times with so many of the faces in this squad that I have next to no belief that they're capable of getting a result next week. I hope I'm wrong, obviously. I'll be delighted if I'm wrong. But I just don't feel it at all for next week. I actually fear we could be in for another 3-0 or something like that. I think Celtic have, you know, it's the ideal scenario. We've set it up for them. We're going over to their midden, and they know if they win, that's it. It's not official, but the title's practically done.
I mean, the title's done if they get a draw. Because, I mean, we made it the point now that we're having to win just to keep our heads above water, never mind, you know, actually make any ground. But no, you know, these are games, you know, we've seen them before, we know it can happen, but I am kind of on your side with that one, Colin. I'm not confident as such going into it, but there's a few people in the comments that are actually still quite positive. Nearly 61% of people still think we're going to win the league, so that's 60% more than I thought would have been thinking that. So at least the guys in the comments are positive tonight. But see with this team, I know they've let us down on so many occasions, but Stuart, I was mentioning that game earlier, the 2-0 game in 2005. Obviously, we've seen the miracle that happened in Helicopter Sunday that day. one thing that always stuck with me, and I think I mentioned it to you, was Alec McLeish doing interviews a few years later, where he was speaking about Celtic being a goal up at Motherwell and us drawn 0-0 at Easter Road, and he's saying, just go out and win the game, do your jobs, because if you don't win this game and Celtic slip up, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. For me, with these players, just go and give it everything next week, get the win. If we can win the 5 games in the split, which we've never done before, coincidentally, but if we do that, we've done our job, we've done everything we can going into these last 5 games of the season. And if we lose the league, at least for this last few games, we've given it everything we've got, we've done everything we can. But if we end up going next week, we're not putting in the effort, we've not got the mentality to put in a performance, that's really what's going to get at me. I really want these players to put in a performance, and ultimately, even just thinking about a few weeks later, the cup final, because if they can put in a performance next week, regardless of the result, hopefully it should give them belief going into the final to say, no, we can actually play well against them, and we might be able to get something.
I agree with everything you've said.
Oh, well, that's
I might make you feel better. The one thing I would say, everything you've said is absolutely spot on. What I would question is the actual belief within so many players within that team.
Yeah,
right. And there is nothing there. You cannot. The manager cannot go in and say, right, you don't want to be here, you don't want to be here, you don't want to be here. I'll pick 3 guys that I know, I'll give me 100% effort. They might not be as talented, but I'll get 100% effort out of them compared to you guys that you just want out of here. He doesn't have that at his disposal. So you're stuck with the guys that you've got. How you engender that belief, how you get them fired up for a couple of league matches and a cup final. The cup final should be easier, but I still think that they let themselves down badly. Even that, even getting the draw against Celtic, they were still in the mix. They then let themselves down badly next time out. And that bit of it it's almost like, phew, we got away with that one. And then they just fall flat in their face next time around. There is nothing to say that they learn by their mistakes and get fired up by disappointment. And that bit of it, Colin saying he feels another 3-0. I think there's a hell of a lot of Rangers fans, if they were telling the truth out there, would think the same. And I just noticed in the comments somebody saying there, you can't say that Celtic are a bad team and we can't beat them. Celtic are not a great team. This Rangers side are not as good as Celtic, and the league table tells you that. But that doesn't mean to say that a Celtic team are world beaters. You look at the league, Celtic on 84 points, Rangers on 81. The next team, Hearts, on 63. There's almost another league between everybody. That basically tells you that's the state of Scottish football. So you could win this league and qualify for Europe, the Champions League and all the rest of it, and still not be a very good team. And I think that's a measure of where Scottish football is just now.
Aye, it's certainly not in a great position. And if everyone wants the Romans even more positive, I'm doing the review next Sunday after the Old Firm game, and I've never done an Old Firm review where we've won it on this channel.
Your alarm will still be going off in the bin next week. You'll still be answering quick. You'll be helping the police with their inquiries.
Do you know what? I really hope that none of my neighbours are listening to this, because every day you've just starts me in big time there.
You deserve it.
No. You're probably right, I probably do, but life goes on. But next Sunday, hopefully I'm delivering a more positive Old Firm review than what I have during my Gersnet career. But I think that's probably a good time to wrap up there. Anyway, guys, we'll be back next Friday. It's going to be John and Scott previewing that big Old Firm game at Parkhead next Friday at 9 o'clock. Obviously, this is live on YouTube at the moment. Around sometime tomorrow, you'll be able to get us on all of your usual podcast providers. Lastly, though, I'll just thank my guests for coming on. Stuart, thanks for coming on as ever.
Thanks again for the invite.
Not a problem. Colin, thanks for coming on again, mate.
No bother. Cheers.
Yep. We'll see you next week, guys, and enjoy the rest of your bank holiday weekend. Bye-bye.